Conservators who are based in Windsor, and paintings might be clean, they might be dusted quite regularly, but an actual full clean, which involves removing all the discoloured varnish.
There's a lot of blame attached to him and the royal household, so the general feeling amongst officers was that it was his fault.
What if I told you that the most glamorous palace in the world, the very heart of the British monarchy, hides a reality so strict, so punishing, that even its most loyal servants were eventually pushed to their breaking point? We're talking about Buckingham Palace, a place the world sees as a symbol of elegance and timeless tradition. Chandeliers glisten, marble floors shine, and gold leaf decor dazzles visitors. But behind those walls, the staff who kept everything perfect weren't living in a fairy tale. They were living under rules so suffocating, under pressure so unrelenting, that some decided they couldn't take it anymore. Why did they finally leave? What scandals boiled over? And what shocking secrets have insiders exposed about palace life? The answers might change the way you look at the monarchy forever. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, because the truth behind royal life isn't what you think, and you won't want to miss the story still to come. From the outside, Buckingham Palace projects perfection. Tourists line up every day just to glimpse its gates, imagining a magical world of royal grace inside. But for those who actually lived and worked within, like former maid Simmons, the story was very different. And who served for over a decade, described a palace of silence, hierarchy, and constant discipline. Rules weren't suggestions, they were commandments. A maid wasn't just dusting or polishing, she was carrying the weight of centuries of tradition on her shoulders. Every action, no matter how small, could ripple outward and reflect on the monarchy itself. The palace demanded perfection. And perfection, as in revealed, came at a cost. Because when you live under a microscope every single second of your shift, even a mop or a cloth stops being a tool and becomes a test of loyalty. But it wasn't just the rules themselves that shocked these women. It was the sheer ceremony of even the most basic tasks. Inside Buckingham Palace, cleaning wasn't simple. It was ritualized, almost sacred. Imagine folding a cloth not the way you want, but the way tradition demanded. Wringing out a mop not by feel, but to an exact tension. Mixing solutions not with modern sprays, but with homemade recipes of vinegar, lemon, and warm water. Why? Because palace tools were different. Wet wipes were banned. Steel wool forbidden. Commercial sprays? Not allowed. To the outside world, these rules might sound absurd. But in the palace, they were law. Part of the reason was practical. Wipes clogged the ancient plumbing system. Steel will risk scratching priceless marble or damaging stainless steel that had been polished for decades. But the deeper reason was symbolic. Every detail mattered. Cleaning wasn't about tidiness. It was about preserving centuries of legacy, where even a cloth could be seen as a threat to history if used incorrectly. Think about that pressure. You're not just scrubbing. You're safeguarding the monarchy's image. A single smudge on a counter wasn't just carelessness. It was a reflection of failure. And sooner or later, even the most disciplined workers began to crack under the weight. And when they did, the results were explosive. It happened one December night. After long hours and endless rules, around 50 palace staff gathered at a London bar for a Christmas party. For a moment, the palace world disappeared. They could laugh, relax, and forget the weight of royalty. But that night, all the pressure boiled over. Reports claimed that one young maid snapped. She lashed out, punched her manager, smashed glasses, and caused complete chaos. Police were called. She was arrested, fined, and released the next day. On the surface, it looked like just another drunken scuffle. But those who knew palace life saw it differently. It wasn't about the bar. It wasn't about the fight. It was about years of suffocating rules, of endless discipline, erupting in public. The palace tried to contain the story quickly, insisting it wasn't an official party and promising disciplinary action. But the damage was done. For the first time, outsiders saw a crack in the facade. The polished elegance of Buckingham Palace couldn't protect its workers from being human. And that begged a bigger question. If junior maids were crumbling under the pressure, what about the powerful figures at the very top of palace service? For decades, Lady Susan Hussey was one of the most trusted members of the royal household. She had served faithfully since the 1960s, standing by Queen Elizabeth II herself. If anyone seemed untouchable, it was her. But one palace reception changed everything. An interaction with charity leader Ngozi Fulani spiraled into scandal. Questions Hussey asked were described as intrusive and inappropriate. When the exchange went public, the reaction was swift and brutal. Lady Susan apologized and stepped down almost overnight. And with that, one of the longest-serving insiders in royal history was gone. The message was clear. Even the most powerful staff, people who had given their entire lives to the monarchy, could be erased in an instant. If someone like Lady Susan wasn't safe, imagine the fear felt by the maids cleaning every corner under constant surveillance. Loyalty wasn't enough. Discipline wasn't enough. And yet, the demands only grew stronger in every corner of the palace, especially in its kitchens. If you think the kitchen was a place of freedom and creativity, think again. Former royal chef Darren McGrady revealed a world of rules as rigid as those faced by the maids. Every ingredient mattered. Many were sourced directly from royal estates: berries, salmon, venison, vegetables fresh from the land. Meals weren't just meals. They were symbols of heritage. But some foods were completely banned. Garlic, for instance, never appeared. Why? Its strong smell was deemed inappropriate for royal dining. Chefs had to suppress their own instincts and follow centuries-old guidelines. And plating. It wasn't about artistry. It was about precision. A garnish slightly off-center wasn't a mistake. It was an insult. Portions had to be exact, symmetry perfect, and presentation flawless. The chefs, like the maids, weren't cooking or cleaning. They were performing. And one slip, one careless move, could define how the entire palace was judged. But here's the irony. While the work demanded perfection, the rewards were anything but royal. To the outside world, working at Buckingham Palace sounds like a dream job. Prestige, proximity to royalty, history at your fingertips. But the paycheck told a very different story. Job postings for live-in housekeepers revealed wages as low as £7.97 an hour, barely above minimum wage in London. Annual salaries hovered around £19,900. Yes, accommodations and meals were included. Yes, there was a pension contribution. But critics pointed out the obvious. The pay was shockingly low for a role that demanded absolute perfection. The palace claimed it was an error, insisting the overall package was competitive. But for many, the truth was undeniable. You could make more stacking shelves in a London supermarket than safeguarding priceless antiques in the most famous palace on earth. For maids, the math was simple. Endless work, suffocating rules, constant scrutiny, and pay that didn't reflect the pressure. But even beyond money, it was life inside the palace itself that broke many in the end. Former chef Darren McGrady once described Buckingham Palace as a self-contained village. He wasn't exaggerating. Staff didn't just work there. They lived there. But life inside wasn't glamorous. It was controlled. Male and female staff were separated into different wings. Floors were designated by rank. Maids on one, footmen on another, kitchen staff elsewhere. Crossing into the wrong area without permission? Forbidden. It wasn't just organization. It was control. Every hallway had its rhythm. Every room had its rules. Even off-duty, staff weren't free. They were expected to carry themselves with professionalism, silence, and discretion at all times. Yes, they had meals. Yes, they had rooms. But they had little freedom. Personal independence was traded for service to the crown. And while some accepted that trade, for others, it became unbearable. Because sooner or later, every servant inside the palace faced the same choice: continue sacrificing their freedom or walk away. And Simmons, who lived this life for over a decade, described it perfectly. It was a delicate balance. Speed and perfection. Discipline and exhaustion. Prestige and sacrifice. For some, the prestige was worth it. To serve the monarchy was an honor. But for others, the balance tipped. And once it did, the decision was clear. Walking away wasn't about disrespect. It wasn't about rejecting tradition. It was about reclaiming freedom, peace of mind, and a life outside palace walls. Some left quietly, others left in scandal. But together, their stories paint a vivid picture. Buckingham Palace may be a symbol of history and grandeur, but it is also a place where human beings lived under relentless scrutiny. And that reality isn't in the tourist brochures. So now the question is for you. If you had the chance to work inside Buckingham Palace, if you could step into those halls of history, surrounded by marble and gold, would you take it? Would the prestige be worth the pressure? Or would the endless rules, the low pay, and the loss of freedom eventually break you too? The truth is, behind the glittering facade, palace life isn't what most imagine. It's not just about elegance, it's about endurance. And not everyone can endure forever. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to subscribe right now, because the secrets hidden inside the monarchy go far deeper than what we've uncovered today. And in the next video, we'll expose what royal chefs had to give up just to serve the queen. Sacrifices so surprising, they'll leave you speechless.